continue, insert coin, back to split, legging hits to the groin, live in Mortal Kombat versus Shao Kahn, resemble dad and mom just to face my fear. I had not to care, to conquer life, needed balls, bollocks, cojones, to embrace aloneness, hearing your life's less, made my decisions lifeless, but I digress. You 90s rulers of life a mess, by your behest, we do all what you say for a quest, intention the best, creates intended tension, thinking there's secrets in the Snowden, mad after facts out and about, so we spout hate to what we create, an endless cycle, the fate we articulate, capitulate, forward checkmate on a checkerboard, rise on a ripcord, to see pots, pans, looking up for fellow follow fans who sing praise and worship under all, but we can't have that unwanted subscription, we only subscribe to accomplish aspirations for those we say.
I can go anywhere.
What's up, guys? It's Nikki Lachey, and you are listening to Beyond Borders with Rose Gold and Kid Gravity.
The views and opinions of this podcast are solely those of the host, Beyond Borders Media. And trust me, if you hear something you didn't like, go do your research.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me on this live edition of Beyond Borders with Rose Gold and Kid Gravity. Folks, as you can probably tell, my voice is a little hoarse. Pause. I just finished a couple hours ago one of my second, technically, Clubhouse room. First one we did, Rose and I did not like it, and I'm waiting for Rose to get in the room. We did not like it. We were talking about Black filmmaking and things of that sort. And there was only a few people in there. And, you know, when you're in those rooms, it doesn't really work if there's not a lot of people. So we ended it, and we tried to do a live show with it. Didn't work too well, but maybe one day we'll talk about Black filmmaking, maybe even bring some executives and things like that on there. But I did a room with Miss Nicole Michelle and Bailey from the You Know That's Real podcast and Gabe, the Ultimate Black Man. And we talked about what a Biden presidency will look like with Black America. And folk, at the peak, I'm sure it was probably more, but what I screenshotted, I had 104 people in there, so I was really happy for that. And I made some connections. I helped make some connections for other people because I support what Black people do out here. So, you know, for now, that's going to be a bi-monthly thing from now on. So look out for that on Clubhouse, Kid Gravity. I'll be over there, and, you know, you can do that. So right now, I'm just pinning the StreamYard link in the chat box if anybody wants to come on, because I think I want to hear everybody talk about this subject that you see in the title called "Why Don't We Have More Black Wall Streets?" And actually, the subject of Black Wall Street came up in that room. And I know I mentioned it on other shows previously, especially over the summer, especially with the advent of Ice Cube and his contract with Black America. And it was just fascinating that with all this buying power that we like to brag about, we don't have at least most of that income circulating through the Black community. We all heard that stat that the Black dollar leaves the community within 6 hours, and that's crazy. It doesn't even get a chance to go through another Black hand first before it leaves. So I wanted to know from the audience and the world at large, why don't we have more of these? And I think it's because, by and large, we don't. Well, one, we don't value our money, but two, I think it's we know when we build something, or anybody on earth builds something, they're accountable for how it performs, how it looks, how it's presented. And a lot of us don't want that hassle, because if we get that hassle, then, you know, we might not be inclined to work at it, or we think, okay, we just accomplished it and that's it. So I wanted to have this discussion because I feel like with all these rappers out here, we should have at least had it on every coast in this country. And it doesn't have to be a whole city or a whole town or even a county. It could have been a few blocks. I mean, Black Wall Street had literal like 2 or 3 streets down in Durham, North Carolina, and Tulsa, Oklahoma. Rosewood, yeah, it was a little bit of a town, but that could be considered a Black economic hub. Harlem was a Black economic hub. So the blueprints were there. It's just, I don't understand how in 2021, with all these innovations and all these advancements, and then all these Black people pushing Black business, why we don't have this. It's kind of crazy to me. So where the hell is Rose? It does not take that long. I know I sent it to her. I'll send it to her again because I don't know where she is, and I want to hear her input on this because she is a advocate of Black business, and she's trying to start a Black business of her own. And I don't understand why she's not here. But whoever y'all out there, don't hide. Say something. We'll put your comment on the screen. Like I said, the comment of the link to the show is in there. So if you want to talk, feel free. We'll bring you on. Just don't be long-winded, please, because that room was a little crazy today. Everybody wanted to get their points across, and it was kind of hard at times to make sure to keep the room level. So, but yeah. Okay, so I sent it to her. Where the hell is she? Anyway. Black Wall Street. Yes, King Sigma in the house. You know how he does. He always shows love. Yeah, I did speak about that in the room as well, King Sigma. I did bring up integration. Integration, we integrated incorrectly. See, there's nothing wrong with putting in some of your resources into a community pot, so to say, just to show somewhat of economic power and to, you know, better the totality of everything. But I think where we messed up at is we integrated too much of ourselves into American society to the point that we only identify with American society. And you're seeing the pushback of that mindset with the FBAs, with the ADOS, with the pro-blacks, the B1s, the HOTEPs, the red, black, and greens. They want to go back to a more Afrocentric society. And we have those that don't want that. They want to stick with the European standard. And we even heard and saw the clip Martin Luther King saying, I think I integrated my people into a burning building, because he recognized that, yes, he can do everything he can to improve race relations. He also understood that people are going to be human at the end of the day, and they're going to make their choice on how to deal with us. And unfortunately, with Black Wall Street, they showed how they wanted to deal with us. They did not want us creating economic hubs where we control our own dollar. We can control our own narrative, especially coming straight out of slavery. So they were really pissed off about that. So we have all heard the story. They burned it down. We built it back and they burned it down again. And then we scattered. And then The war happened. After Depression, everybody was out of work. We brought that money home, built up the Negro Leagues, took those factory jobs, built little communities, little black communities here and there. We created black businesses. And then once again, you know, the forces that be made it seem like their ice was colder than ours. And our products were more inferior than theirs. And we took our dollars and put it towards the community race pot instead of the black pot. And here we are again, 2021, and we voted for someone who doesn't care about the black dollar because there's nothing to squeeze out of that. He didn't need it. He used it through a movement that was about trying to equalize the playing field in terms of social justice and use them to take funds that we could have used out of our communities to line his party's pockets. But, you know, that's more of a political thing. I kind of don't want to get into that today. This is more commentary about why we have all these celebrities and we big up these celebrities and these people that have influence and these captains of industry, and us as the working class black people and the working poor and the middle class and the upper class, we're not holding them to task because all these big Democrat-run cities have huge black populations. I mean, black people emigrated from the South to New York, to Boston, to Philadelphia, to Chicago, to California for better opportunities. And it seems we just went for the opportunities and then said, okay, I carved out a nice little niche for myself. I'm not going to do much with it. Not everyone, but, you know. So I was saying that, especially here in New York where I live currently, we have Diddy, we have Jay-Z, we had Carmelo Anthony, Mari Stoudemire, who's big on black business, Chris Rock, Spike Lee, to a lesser extent, Lupita Nyong'o, she lives in Brooklyn. We had all these black celebrities out here. Why couldn't there be a pipeline between Brooklyn and Harlem? You could even had half of a Black Wall Street in Brooklyn and the other half in Harlem. I mean, you're watching the Africans do it. They shop it with themselves. That is true. King Sigma, he is more concerned about Israel, but I was more talking about when he and Bella were here on the Knicks back in the early 2010s. They could have did something there. Stephen A. Smith, he has money and influence. He could have been part of that, but, you know, again, I'm not trying to tell them what to do. It's just on optics, it just looks weird that we had all that black money flowing through and we didn't do anything with it. We can move down to Philly. You have all those black athletes in Philly. You had Bill Cosby before y'all locked him up. Meek Mill. I know this is going to spark names, but y'all had Umar. You could have had Umar part of that. Again, you know, Philly could have been a black, you could have had a little enclave. North Philly should have been Black Wall Street. But, you know, again, it is what it is. Atlanta, shout out to Killer Mike. He has his little, he started his bank, Greenwood, named after Black Wall Street. He has his little enclave of businesses there. That's a great start. But with all that black money flowing through Atlanta right now, and we're talking billions because Tyler Perry's down there You got T.I., you got Killer Mike, you got all them black celebrities that do shows down there. Goddamn Marvel is out there pulling out movies. You have all those black celebrities coming in. It didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that they didn't say, okay, they go up to the mayor, like, listen, give us Mableton, give us East Point, give us College Park, give us Inman Park, Piedmont Park. Those should be ours. Little 5 points. Those should be ours. And have a black, what you call it there. But nah, everybody wanted to line their pockets. Somebody jumped in the room. I wonder who is this? Hello, how are you?
Hey, what's going on with your kid Gravity, man? King Sigma, jumping on for a few minutes.
Oh shit! I didn't even recognize the logo. I was like, who the hell is this?
Oh, no, that's just my regular, headshot. Most of the time I use my logo for my channel.
I feel you. This is the first time I seen your face, though. I didn't know if you want to put that out there, though.
Sometimes I, use my headshot, but when I'm using my channel, I like to, keep everything connected to that what I'm doing on that channel specifically. But, in regards to the Black Wall Street thing, you always got to start with the integration thing because, again, we're talking about 100 years ago, and we're talking about a time that, in that part of America where Jim Crow was the law by the gun, right?
Correct.
So these people were forced to live amongst each other regardless of class. So it's like even today, right? Like you said that you're in Brooklyn. So I've been out to New York and, I stayed in like Fort Greene, Park Slope, and I spent some time in Crown Heights as well when I was there. And even if you just look at the way that a place like New York is set up, it's very class and ethnic enclave based, right?
Correct.
So if you look at the Black America, even then, and some of the the scholars that came out of that time, they were always talking about the issues with class amongst Native Black Americans themselves. So if you're in a situation like you live in Brooklyn and you're making like $200K, you're going to live in an area with people that are closer into your economic range up until the point of the ethnic thing comes into play. But you're definitely going to extend out as far as you possibly can. That's going to be comfortable for you. So you got to understand with Black Wall Street, you had people that even at that time, you had like millionaires down there in Greenwood, and they were forced to live right next door to the poorest Black Americans, right? Like right next door. They had no choice. So that played a big role in it. You give people choice and they're going to make the best choice for their immediate desires and needs more so than, well, this is for the community. We romanticize a lot of stuff in this day and age, and they said it only takes about, I think, 20 years for people to forget stuff. So, like, we have to understand that when MLK and they were fighting for integration because they wanted integration. It was specifically the richer Blacks. They wanted access to bigger markets, bigger schools, corporate jobs, government jobs. That's what they wanted. I guess, they say hindsight is 2020, but they say that the human memory is short. We look back on it and we're like, man, we should have did Black Wall Street, but we got to understand that's romanticizing it, bro. Like, that's not how they saw it. They wanted to be able to spread around the country to live and shop where they wanted to. And now we've seen some of the more, what we see as being negative because we're pining for a time that may be gone forever. It's a pining, right? It's a romanticization of the past because we didn't have to live it. But it ain't what we think it. We put a lot of stuff on it that ain't true. Those people were forced to live together, so they have to make the best of a bad opportunity. And now that people have freedom of choice to do and go where they want, they're making their choice. And those days, they're not coming back voluntarily, only by force.
Yes, sir. Hey, my co-host showed up. Hello, co-host.
Hey, big head. What's up?
How are you?
Awesome.
That's what's up.
Well, I don't know who's the other guest we have, but
that is my man, King Sigma. He does.
Hey, what's good? I see your name is Rose. What's good with you?
Yeah, doing well. Well, I was just trying to piggyback on what you said that choices now. When I hear people talk about Black Wall Street and how we're why we're not able to build it back, and it says that we like you say we daydreaming pretty much of that idea from back in the past. The truth is that today reality is completely different. Um, Even the way that Black Wall Street was built back then, it was very, very, very intentional. When the first, I don't remember his name, and I don't. Okay, yeah, with O.W. Gurley walked in and purchased like that 40 acre of land and made sure that it was only sold back to African American. That was very intentional. Can we scale? Because now when we talk about Black Wall Street, is an economy that we where we recycle our dollars. And I read an article where they talked about how that dollar circulated 36 times to 100 times within the same community, and sometimes did not leave the community until a year later. Like you said, people made the best of the worst opportunity they had, or the best of the worst chance they had. But today we have choice. We have maybe way more choice that we could. So um it sounds good to me. I don't want to come here and say it's not doable. It's definitely possible. But I think that we have to think it in today's term. In today's term, can we make sure that it's literally overtaking one neighborhood, period. It's not having people leave, I don't know, a borough and come to another one. It's people staying there, living there. So to make sure they spend a dollar in the same community. Um, it's this is why a lot of people say buying the block. It made sense because for it to work, to have that economy of scale, for one is to all have and everyone on the same in the same physical space too. But now, with the word, we can buy from small business, from Black business online. They have website, and I think it makes sense. But I guess those are things that we have to think of when we think about wanting to recreate what was back in the 1900s. It's doable, but yeah, it would take a lot.
It will take a lot because, well, for one, we do need the land for it, but we also need the political power behind it. And we know we are not balanced enough to do that right now, because we know the group that we're emboldened to, the jackasses, they're not going to allow that, because once you take control of your economics, you control your vote 100%, and you get to make the decisions. And when you can make the decisions, people don't have any use for you after that.
Yeah, this election kind of showed it for me. If you look at that conversation that Joe Biden had with those old and beat up, retired, quote unquote, civil rights leaders that was leaked by Black Lives Matters, man, that was
irony. No.
Oh, you didn't listen to that?
Oh no, I heard it, but I'm saying irony, right?
Yeah,
Black Lives Matter was the one that released it.
Yeah, because they were pissed off because they didn't have a seat at the table. So when you really think about that conversation, and Biden, when he ended it talking about, you Black people need to get in line with the Latinos, that was the biggest slap in the face to Native Blacks. And you could see that look on the face. I'm glad it was a Zoom, because they were just dejected, bro. Al Sharpton, old and dejected. But they know that they've sold out their integrity over the last 2 or 3 decades, that they really don't have no credibility with the white liberals, because the white liberals are just like, look, we've been cutting these checks with you guys, giving you these nice jobs that you didn't earn, and you better not say anything back to us, because that's really what's been going on. That's why integrity and economic power is so important, because when you have your own economic base and when you have personal and cultural integrity, they can't do that to you. You can't do that to Jews. Jews, man, it's certain things that they're not going to let other Jews do publicly with that Anti-Defamation League. Bro, if you're a Jew,
the ADL.
Yeah, the ADL, you go out and you say something that the ADL doesn't like, they come in and chopping your head off as a fellow Jew because they understand how propaganda can decimate a whole minority culture in a society that has a dominant culture that is kind of like, they have that nationalistic thing that like in the Germany. So the Jews having gone through that, they know the danger of allowing a much larger population to paint you a certain way, right? Something that as Native Blacks, we've completely failed each other. Our parents have failed us overall. Our grandparents have failed us to protect the image of Black men and Black women and Black children in the eyes of the world. And that's why we're having these conversations, because we that come to these spaces, we're trying to solve the problem, come up with a game plan, and take at least a minimum control of our image to the world. And I think that discussion is happening now. But unfortunately, it's happening at a time when the party that Black Americans are getting all their votes to has came out and said it numerous times in the last year. We're going to focus on Latinos now. Period.
And the illegals.
Yeah, the illegals
and now the East Indians.
Now that East Indian thing is always, that one right there is deep to me, because when you look at the demographics of the Latinos that are coming here, they're coming as unskilled workers, low skilled workers, but the East Indians are coming here as a very vetted and select group of white collar workers. Almost all of these people that have 500K, that represents the next batch of East Indians that come here. It's not like they're going to go to 50 cities in 50 states. They're going to go to like 4 or 5 cities in 2 or 3 states, and they're going to be heavily concentrated in the sciences, the medicines, computer technology, right?
STEM fields.
Yeah, the STEM field type things, and add in finance.
Because we're starving for doctors over here in engineering.
Oh, you could forget about that, brother.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said that in the clubhouse room too. I said they're not gonna spread them out. They're gonna put them in New York. They're gonna put them in Philly. They're gonna put them in Chicago. They're gonna put them in LA. They're gonna put them in Houston. They're gonna put them in Atlanta.
In San Francisco, that's another.
San Francisco,
they out there too. Yeah, because I know a babe that I went to school with, and she works out there like one of the big banks, and she's Afghani. So it's a big thing with them, bro. Like they come see, this stuff is so planned out, and Native Blacks are just so, lost.
Relax with it.
Yeah, they don't understand what kind of things are going on right before their eyes. Like again, those East Indians that come in, remember, America's immigration policy is to give preference to family members. So you got to multiply that. That 500K or whatever Biden said in the next 2 years, you got to multiply that like 2 or 3 over the next decade.
Right. So you're going to talk about a minority class that's going to start to rival us within the next 20 years.
Latinos have already surpassed us.
And they have more economic and political power.
And the Asians have the most. So when you look at the groups that are here, right? So Asians, just strictly looking at income, yearly income, they've surpassed whites. Whites have more wealth because they have, it's built in through slavery and through the,
generational wealth.
Yeah, generational wealth. But when you talk about who's making the most income and who's overrepresented in like the highest income career fields, Asians are just taking off, right? Latinos, they're more on par. Right now, we're at parity as far as economically, Latinos and Blacks, but they're beating us politically and lapping us now because, again, they've outgrown us as a population for lots of different reasons over the last 30 years. But now they are being told by the ruling Democrats that, hey, we're going to give you preferential treatment. You're going to lead the minority coalition that doesn't exist. Man, it's a lot of things that we could talk about.
Because also, too, they're targeting Miami right now. And I know a lot of people aren't picking up on that because they did not expect Miami to come out for Trump like they did. They figured because that was a blue city, that was going to be cool. But when they came out and voted heavy for Trump, they were in trouble. That's why during the election, they gave Florida quick to Trump because they're like, we're not going to win this, so we might as well just let them have it. They were still holding out hope for Texas because they were hoping they'd get some of them liberal Mexicans that are like second generation. But they couldn't win that, so then they were like, okay, fine, we'll give them Texas and we'll give them Ohio. But I mean, damn, Georgia, boy, I said this in that room as well. The Asian community in Georgia was the reason why Biden flipped it. Black folks don't want to accept that. They want to keep telling me Stacey Abrams. I'm like, okay, Stacey got the young voters. She didn't go politic the Asians. The Asians said, okay, you guys are going to ignore us. We're going to show you our power. They voted for that man and then told you point blank, we're coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear. And you mentioned the whole thing with that difference between like the Latinos that tend to, migrate to like a Miami area versus Texas. Again, that's that class distinctions and different nationalities that represent what we call Latino, which is a very stupid term because, again, Cuban Americans are not the same as Mexican Americans or Guatemalan or Colombians, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have different views based on the economic and political system they come from. Cubans, again, their whole situation with the communist takeover was very recent, 60, 70 years ago. So we're talking that thing that happened in Cuba is a big thing because, again, you have to understand when a communist takeover happens, the wealth is taken from the wealthiest people first.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that, Kid Gravity lived in one of these societies and you were in the top 1%. And then there's a new political takeover and you had like $10 million in your bank that day, like literally that day, you had a choice between trying to get your money as fast as possible or jumping on a boat and getting out of the country. So when you talk about that Cuban American, you have to understand that's what they're coming out of, where that group that was heavily Republican, their families have shared the stories and passed down that cultural thing like against communism. Because again, you had whole families that built up wealth over generations down there that overnight with that the Fidel Castro revolution and all that, they just took all their wealth overnight and gave it to everyone else.
Yeah. Rose, what say you? Rose, stop watching football. She fell asleep. I can't believe this. She fell asleep. Rose, get up. And whatever. She's probably drinking. Anyway, yes. So I was also saying earlier too, I don't know how much you heard, but I said we should have at least 7 something close to Black Wall Streets around the country. Should be one in New York, one in Philly, one in Houston, one in Atlanta, one in LA, and 2 other places. One in Chicago, I guess. The way Black folk did Claude Anderson, that just ticked me off because he gave us the blueprint to set up something in Detroit, which needed that money, and the older Black folks, like you said, dismissed him and told him to get out. And now Detroit is going to what Crown Heights up here is going through, what went through in the early 2000s with gentrification.
Yeah, that gentrification thing is real, bro. It's way understated. It's way understated.
Yeah, because I was talking to someone up in Detroit. He was like, white people coming in buying up them dilapidated houses. They're giving them like $20,000, and they're just taking them houses and they're buying them up. And they're buying it up, and also the Muslims are buying them up.
Yeah.
So he said projected from what he's hearing, in the next decade and a half, the West and East Sides are not going to be predominantly Black anymore.
Well, you saw it with the election.
They're going to push them out.
You saw that with the election. If you paid attention to Detroit, there was a big thing, that little the Muslim woman that's in Congress that they call a part of the squad, quote unquote.
Yeah, Rashida Tlaib.
Yeah, her. If you look at that district and you look at the history of that district and the seat that she took, bro, do you understand symbolically what seat she took? John Conyers?
Yes.
John Conyers is the father of the reparations political bill. So for her, a recently immigrated Muslim American, to in 2021 be in that seat and having beaten twice competitors that come from the old wealthy Black families of Detroit, do you understand symbolically what that means?
Yeah, we have no political power in Detroit anymore.
So you basically only have like what, 1 or 2 strongholds of Black gentrification within that climate of power. But when you look at a lot of the cities that you mentioned, because when I was out in New York, as a Midwesterner, what stood out to me is that I have kept hearing all this stuff about how, Black Harlem all my life growing up, And when I actually went up to Harlem myself, the first thing that stuck out of my mind was how gentrified it was.
Oh yeah, well they gentrified Harlem. They started in the late '90s with that. Like basically, this was the list. They started with Harlem because it was the biggest. Because everybody wanted to live in Manhattan and they wanted to work in Manhattan, but they wanted to be close. So Harlem was first. Then they went to Crown Heights in Brooklyn because it's close to the city and it's right there. You're literally 20 minutes, you're in the city. And they have those historic brownstones, which people bought for a song. And now they're worth over $2 million. So, you know, well, there's not a lot of black people there anymore because a lot of them were old. So they either leave it to their family or they sell it.
Didn't Sylvias close down up there?
Sylvias, I believe it did, but that's up in Harlem. I think it did.
Okay, because one of my favorite spots when I went there was Melba's and Red Rooster in Harlem.
Red Rooster's still there.
And again, that's a more gentrified kind of set.
Right.
I don't know if Melba's is still there because she was.
Melba's, I think she might be, but yeah, it's tough. Then after Crown Heights, it was BedStuy. And you know BedStuy was historically black.
Yeah.
Number of white people there now.
Man, what was that?
Pretty much.
Because when I was over there, when I was in Crown Heights, and I wish I remembered that street that I was on, man, because I would
remember what was on it.
Man, I don't remember. It was like New York is so big, bro. But I was talking to a babe that I met out there in New York, and she lived
Was it
right
like
over
Nostrand, Franklin?
And it was like this really known street, bro, that I used to walk around, and it was like right in Crown Heights, and it's really known. It's one of those streets that everyone talks about in New York, but I don't know, man. I really like New York, bro. Like, besides the cost and the dirtiness of it.
Well, New York is dead right now, and I did a show about that on my podcast. Like, New York is done for at least a year or two because the policies they've passed here and the ineptitude of the mayor. And the fact they just took $1 billion away from the NYPD. They eliminated the anti-crime unit, which was responsible for tracking the guns in this city. And then you look at the 2020 stats, we had a 97% uptick in shootings.
Oh, I heard it's even more worse than that because that's, you know, a lot of businesses are also starting to leave New York. I've read.
Now I'm going to talk about that with the gentrification as well.
Yeah, some of those.
After BedStuy, after BedStuy, then they went to Queens, which is the borough where you find the most families in New York City.
Yeah, I went up there.
So they went to a store
in Queens.
Huh?
Queens, people, man, there's some good-looking women in Queens. Because there's diversity up there, man. That's
the most diverse. Well, they said that's the most diverse county in the country.
I could tell.
Yeah, when I was up there. Because I used to live in Queens, and every little town in Queens is separated by nationality.
See, I was out at St. John's University on my trip there.
That's like Jamaica, but over there, that's mostly like Jews and the Hindu community.
Okay, because I've seen a lot of like Latina looking chicks out there too.
Well, those Latino chicks, they come from like Corona. That's like North Queens and Long Island City over there.
See, the thing about the Midwest, like we don't got that kind of diversity, and I guess being out here, man, it's like black, white, and Mexican, and then there's a couple sprinkles of like Southeast Asians, and a couple.
We got all that in Queens. Every little town in Queens is specific to one race.
Yeah, see, that's what stood out. Because it's like so many. It's like it's like a whole ethnic enclave, and you just like walk down the street. And then you start seeing people that look like this, and then you walk down.
Like you can literally cross the street into the next town and see a whole different culture.
Yeah, because I noticed that like when you're driving through like Fort Greene by that where the Brooklyn Nets play at, in that area. But then when you go up towards like Park Slope area, and then like when you pass Park Slope, then you start seeing more Latinas. It's like it's the vibe in New York, man. It's one of those places that if you got your money right. Or you're in school, and I'm just speaking as someone that's not actually a native-born New Yorker, man, you could really fall in love with like Brooklyn specifically.
Well, that's what they did with the gentrification. They made sure Brooklyn was attractive. They marketed it as the alternative to Manhattan. But here's the problem with what they did with gentrification now. And this is where it affects black folks. Yeah, they did Crown Heights, which was black, and we had our riot there and whatever. What black people in New York need to watch out for, they're starting to gentrify Jamaica Queens.
That's like pretty much the last spot for them, right?
That's the last. Well, that was like the main area for Caribbeans and African Americans.
Yeah, coming to America, that was
like our biggest shot. And the fact that they're putting up high rises now in affordable housing, white people are starting moving in there.
Bro, it's so much a done deal. It's unfortunate. I know that you're more moderate than I am, but it's mostly a done deal because you got to look at things like what's going on with China and how they're kind of taking over cities in the Western world now. A lot of the millionaires and billionaires from China have slowly been buying up like lots of real estate in places like LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Vancouver, and New York. And what's going to most likely happen, man, is that a lot of those Latinos and a lot of the East Indians that we were talking about earlier are going to be shipped to places like what you're talking about because those have always been immigrant strongholds. So they'll be shipped to places like Jamaica Queens because of the cost of living. They'll build.
Well, Jamaica's going up now because of the gentrification. Like 3 years ago, before they started, rent was still affordable in the city by New York City standards. You could still get a nice 2-bedroom for $1,400. Now it's now it's 22.
Well, they're pushing a lot of people to the south, man. It's not unusual,
That's what they want.
They're pushing.
The whole plan is to make sure to get all the Midwestern white people and all those other races to the industrialized North, like they used to do. That's where the money. That's where the money is.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see a lot of the whites that are currently in the South moving upwards in the Midwest, and some of the Midwesterners moving eastward.
Well, the Midwesterners have been doing that for the past 20 years. They've been coming to New York. They get that nice 6-figure job, and they come from Kansas. They come from St. Louis. They come from Chicago. Chicago should be a haven right now because they have less rent than us, but even Chicago's going through it. Nobody wants to go there anymore because of the laws and the crime.
And
so
that's why
where are they going? They're either going further south to like Iowa or Nebraska, or they're going as far south as Texas.
Yep, Texas has been blowing up. Texas is like the fastest growing state now.
Yeah.
So when you got that, and then you add in the Latino population, people forget about the Latinos. Here's the thing: there's a reason why they put so much focus on the Latinos because they're Catholics. They don't believe in abortion. Right. So when they come here, the thing about immigrants, especially like Muslims and Catholics, they reproduce very quickly. Like, whenever I talk to someone that has more than 4 kids today, that's under the age of 50, they're all immigrants in my city. I'll talk to some Muslim. I know a couple of Muslim Somali guys who have like 5 to 10 kids. By the time they're 30, they're the only Americans that are reproducing like that are the immigrants for the most part.
Right.
Whites ain't reproducing like that. They're producing one child, if any,
every few years.
Yeah,
they want to make sure that their money is straight before they have the next one.
Yeah, but the poor immigrants don't think like that. They have their religion, and they're not seeing the world the same way like rich white people are. So they come here
and they hustle.
They get their money. They got government opportunities, and they produce children very quickly. So got to keep that in mind. So these people know what they're doing. They know that if they take 500,000 from these Indians, and they take 10 million Latinos from throughout South America in the next 5 years, that seed population represents what? 30 million people in 25, 30 years? I would have to look at a chart, but it doesn't take that long to go from a population of what we're talking about with the East Indians, and because I know they said 10 million Latinos, 500,000 East Indians. That population could double itself in 30 years?
We could go the same way that Hispanics did when they started really growing up in the 70s. And look what they did in 50 years. They took over LA so much so now they're creeping on Watts right now. They take over Watts. Black folks are done in LA.
I heard they were already done in LA. When you talk to a lot of LA folks, man, they say that they're already done.
Well, they're still holding out for Watts, but I think Watts is probably going to go in the next 5 years. And then you're really going to be in trouble.
That homeless population is insane out there. And it's mostly black men.
Right. That's why I said we should have had Snoop and all of them should have taken Long Beach while it was still shitty. Not to shit on anybody from LA listening, but while the price was still low, y'all should have came in there and built it up and took it over. That way, when something like this happens, you'd be like, all right, y'all come to Long Beach.
Can't do that when you buying fake jewels for $1 million from Jacob the Jeweler, bro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Remember what happened with that little thing with Jacob the Jeweler?
Yeah, Jacob the Jeweler sitting in jail right now.
Yeah, he took all of them. See, that's the thing. Like, that's why when we had these conversations, I be thinking, like, I know people had this romantic view of things, but people forget. Let's take the example of Jacob the Jeweler. Here's a guy who defrauded these black dumb rappers out of millions of dollars, giving them fake jewels that could have easily been used in a bank, you know? So when you talk about someone like Snoop Dogg and these guys, you have to understand they're more focused on looking rich than actually being wealthy.
Right.
So for them, they want to pay $250,000 for that Lamborghini cash, whereas the white Jew, he wants to sell that Lamborghini to Snoop Dogg with an interest rate of like 10%, and then take Snoop's money and keep building into his own business. See, that's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you don't have a healthy relationship with money. So when you were asking the question, why don't we have more Black Wall Street? The foundational answer is because we have people who come from families who don't have a healthy relationship with money from the very beginning.
Okay. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, you got to have a healthy relationship with credit and debt from the very beginning. So your relationship with your parents and their relationship with money, that's where it starts at, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you grow up in a household where they're just spending everything as soon as they get it, and you're taught to, like, you know, enjoy things now on that YOLO tip instead of using like delayed gratification, then how are you ever going to be a creditor class? Not many people are going to be able to come out of those households with a mentality of a creditor. You know, you just compare it to like Bill Gates and all of those guys.
I got to tell you something about Bill Gates now.
Go ahead.
Did you know that he just bought up almost $250 million worth of farmland?
I'm not surprised.
Mm-hmm. And what's he going to do with that farmland? He's going to grow crops to send where? South Asia and Africa. Two mismanaged and maligned communities in the world.
And he'll have those Latinos that they're bringing up in the next couple of years working on those, on those farms you're talking about as well.
Mm-hmm. And someone in that clubhouse room said we should have bought land. And I was like, yeah, but that, again, land is finite right now because Bill Gates just made that big purchase. So now I think they said he's like either the second or the fifth largest landowner in the country.
Not surprised at all. When you look at him, Bezos, and Elon Musk, those three right there that represent that new money kind of generation, they are going to be like the biggest landowners, and possibly because, you know, we're entering a situation where like the corporations have become the government now, right?
Well, they're more powerful than the government.
Yeah, they're more powerful than the governments and the state government after this COVID. Who knows what the world's going to look like at the local government level? And those people are going to have more power than ever.
Well, it's not going to be mayors anymore. It's going to be CEOs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because, you know, they're the only ones making money right now, right? Like, if you look at some of these corporations, they were the biggest beneficiaries of the recent boom in Bitcoin before it went down again. So, you know, when it was at like 25 and then it just went up to like nearly 40, a lot of those corporations had taken some of their revenues and invested in Bitcoin, and they got in and got out, right? And that's how these things happen. So while it is true that half the country is struggling, you know, another portion of the country is either doing just as well as they were doing, or they're actually booming right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I also explained this too, and it has to also do with Black Wall Street indirectly, but the fact that we don't have that many Black businesses that can rival even one of their low tier big businesses, is very telling. And I told people in the room that you need to really, really watch that job market now. I've been out of work since we got shut down in March. I went back about August part-time. And then they kicked me out in October because, you know, restaurant business, it gets cold, less people. Neither here nor there. But I told people, when you're on Indeed looking up these jobs, they ask you to do skills assessments to see where you are. And I told black folks in there, those degrees are not going to save you right now.
Nah.
They need skilled workers. And without those skills, they're not going to look at you. So I even told them, you know what they're going to do with these corporations when they ramp up? They eliminated a lot of jobs. What are they going to fill them with? They're going to fill them with white women.
Yep.
So all those black women that thought, okay, you know what? When it gets back up, I can go back into middle management. I can maintain my lifestyle.
No,
not going to happen.
No, that's not going to happen at all. No, that is not going to happen because a lot of these corporations have downsized because of COVID, but they already wanted to downsize the whole time.
Exactly.
But it wasn't politically feasible to do it because you know how when you lay off a bunch of people, it has like political implications. So pandemic helped out those corporations that already wanted to shed 20-30% of their workforce so that they can make that move to more technology doing the work. So it all just kind of came perfectly.
Right. And here's the thing too. You can't pull that diversity crap in there now.
Nah, that's done. That's done.
Mm-hmm.
They gave it up. And in this space, we've had this conversation quite a bit. You know, I haven't really been doing a lot of posting the last 6-7 months. But when I came in at the end of 2018, that's all we talked about, you know, when I got into this space. And we talked a lot, you know, about this whole thing with the way that they were using that term, people of color. I kept saying it and other brothers were saying the same thing. That is going to be a devastating tool used to push black women out of the workplace. Black men were by 99, black men have for the most part been pushed out of corporate America. Everyone knows this.
Correct.
So the last 20 years or so, affirmative action has been based on gender. Now that included black women, but here's the thing. There was no term people of color even 5 years ago.
Right.
It's a term that they've been, you know, grooming and
for the
molding.
last 2-3 years.
Yeah, just the last few years. And it really
just to hide us.
Yeah.
I told black folks about that. They did that to hide you, and then they got caught. So what did they have to say now? BIPOC.
They came with they took the ADOS DOS thing and they came with their own thing. Because again, in every manifestation, they're trying to erase Native Black American. See, that's why I use the term Native Black American, because there is no confusion, right?
Right.
What they do, the white liberals, what they're doing, they're trying to wash it with the people of color. Then enough black men started calling it out. Because really, black women are the ones that have dropping the ball on this. Because they're the ones that have had this coalition with the white liberals. Black men have had a coalition with nobody.
Right.
That's why you had the 20% of black men that voted for Trump and the 80% of black men that voted for Biden. And that's the biggest, you know, gap.
Biggest takeaway from it.
Yeah. Because black men don't have a coalition right now. That's why we're in these spaces and we had these conversations, because we're developing, you know, our own narratives and our own
agendas right now.
Yeah, our own agenda. But the black woman, she was in a very powerful position the last 20 years because she had a coalition with the white feminists, with the alphabet community and all of that, and the white male cucks. But now that whole coalition is dead. So that's why they started using that term, people of color, BIPOC, because what they're doing, they're letting you know, we got to wash away this Native Black American group because they're the ones that are holding us back from creating this mulatto culture that is class-based instead of race-based. We're really the only group in America that keeps it really at a race-based level.
Correct.
Think about it. We're the
Say it again for the people in the back that still want to be the mammies.
Man, we're the anchors for the race thing because we're the ones that have the most clear story. We have the most clear story, the most clear grievances with the United States government, with the white families that have controlled it for the last 340 years, whatever. We're the only group that's holding that together. The Chinese that come here, they want to assimilate into white. Why do you think white men and the Asian, Chinese, and Japanese women parents are so high, right? Then you got the white Latino thing that's blowing up. All the other minority groups that come here want to assimilate into nothingness. The only group that keeps this country honest about where it's been, where it's at, is the black person. The black people are like, we're like a bad omen for white society in the sense that as long as we exist as Native Black Americans, there's always going to be the grievance of wrongs done and that has never been fully compensated for. It's always going to be there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
But
that's why I said that contract with Black America was so important, because if we could have got, because we know Trump is a dick, he would have signed it just to piss Congress off. He would have signed it.
Yeah.
And we could have used that and said, we could have basically thumbed it in their nose for 10 years. You finally gave us money now. I know y'all going to tell me 50 billion ain't enough. 50 billion is 50 billion more than you got.
Yeah.
That you expected the government to give you. And you're getting federal grants out of it. You're getting money for Black mental health that we desperately need. We could have flipped, and I said we take that money and we flip it at least 3 times to match our buying power. They can't tell us nothing at that point if you do it right. So the decade we have $2 trillion. They have to come see us. We don't go to them. We don't have to cry anymore. We get to dictate the price, but once again, people chose their feelings. Now we're going to be in a situation where you have an administration that's telling you we're not going to do anything for you. Well, I take that back. They're trying to say they're going to do women and minority small businesses. They're going to give them help. See, but you just said you're the party that's going to unite the nation, but now you're being racist against white people to make us feel better.
And that's the other part of it. See, that part right there, that's why I know that ain't nothing coming for Blacks, because again, we already know that they're going to prioritize white women and their white liberal men, but now they can't just say we're going to ignore the 75 or 80 million other whites that was on Trump's side. No, they're going to have to appease.
They have to talk to them
just to keep the country together for the next 2 years. They're going to have to appease that side, because again, the way that the country is set up right now, this country is definitely not too far away from a civil war outcome. It's very possible, bro, because I see Kamala Harris as the balancing, because see, she was someone who lost during the Democratic primary. She had no constituency. She has no constituency now. And if something happens where Biden dies and she's catapulted into the presidency, knowing that she never had no natural constituency, that's the kind of thing that could tear this country completely apart, because the other people will be like, no, this woman was put there. She has no constituency. She couldn't even win her own state in California. This is
I'm going to say something very controversial when you're finished.
Yeah, I was going to say, they would just say that this is a corporate takeover of the American government. So we're going our own way. And I can see, I've already predicted that America will break up into two or three sections that'll be like independent nations. That's just a prediction I got.
Mm-hmm. Well, Texas is already talking about drafting up articles to secede. So, but they'll be fine because they make $44 billion in revenue a year, so they can self-sufficient. But here's the controversial thing, and I'm not endorsing this, so I don't want you coming around here flagging me, YouTube and you bots. But if Kamala does get put there, if you thought the Capitol was bad, there's going to be thousands of patriots that will go on the White House lawn to go get her.
I 100% agree.
Y'all do not need. Black folks, listen to me. You do not want those optics. You do not. Listen, they gave us Obama for 8 years. Technically, they only gave it to us for 4. And the white people said, you ain't doing what you said, bro. We gonna go vote for this idiot Romney.
Yeah.
And then 5% of black folks said, hey, you ain't doing what you said, blood. We not gonna go vote. So where'd he go? He went to the gays.
Yep.
The gays said, okay, we want marriage on the books. If you go look up his record, he voted against gay marriage, but he knew he needed them votes.
Yeah.
So he said, okay, fine. I'll put it on the books. Indirectly, what he created by doing that was BLM. Because if you look at their mission statement, they are anti-black family.
Oh, absolutely.
And they want to create a queer affirming space. And they're run by 4 lesbians. So he indirectly created, he's like Spider-Man. He created his own villain that we're still dealing with.
Yeah, that's what they're dealing with right now in the Democratic Party, because they have that's who leaked the Biden tape, the Black Lives Matter. So what you have.
And by the way, it's been 60 days. They still haven't met that man.
You already know that's not going to happen with Cuban.
I told you. I told black folks this. The fact that not one of them said, hey, Black Lives Matter, that should have told you everything you need to know. Trump, at least as dick and racist as you want to call him, he took one of the biggest enemies we've had in this country and said, if they touch you, it's Fed charges, they never come home. And that was the Klan.
Mm-hmm.
But black folk ignored that.
These people don't.
It was him.
They don't look at that. You're talking about the actual minutia of real politics. You're talking about like actual policies and actual things that got done.
Mm-hmm.
These people that you're talking about, these are like not people that read. They're not people that do research. All they're going to go by is the optics that's passed to them from the mainstream media. And again,
and social media.
And that's why they're after us, all of us, because again, we're the threat. These kind of conversations getting out there, we're the real threat in 2021. Like the people that have conversations like we're having now in these decentralized kind of ways, we're the threat. And they're trying to get rid of everyone like that. And
well, see, they're not going to do it. See, I know they're playing with us. They're not going to do it by just flagging us. They're going to send, how did my man David Carroll say? The buffer Negro.
COINTELPRO, man.
Oh, did you see that documentary that they're coming out with MLK and the FBI? Boy.
Now, who's the director on that one?
Some dude named Sam Polly. He's probably white, but
because you got to be careful like these days with Hollywood.
No, he's actually bringing up J. Edgar Hoover and showing how racist he was against MLK and their plans for what they wanted to do to that man. So I
might take a look at it.
Yeah, I don't know when it's coming out. I saw it pass by when I was getting ready for the show, but I want to show you this and I want to show you the comments. Now, some liberal came after me because I put this up, and I already know they're not black. So this was on my Instagram, K Gravity Beyond. I put this up, I think Thursday. Was it Thursday? Yeah, Thursday. So I put this up. So it says, for y'all that can't see, hang on, let me make sure. Yeah, okay. I think I can make it a little bigger. Yeah, there we go. So I said, Trump was so bad, he got HBU's permanent funding. Now, that's a point of contention with black folks because they say Obama started, Trump all he did was permanently funded. He really didn't do nothing. Okay, optics, ladies and gentlemen. 3 top black recruits coming out of high school have committed to HBCUs.
Yeah, I saw that.
Including the number 3 black prospect is going to Howard. That's huge.
That was a big deal. Yeah, that was huge.
Yes. Do you understand ESPN? If Howard does well, they're going to have to put their games on.
Yep. They had a scene like that in the Boondocks about that kind of thing. I don't know if you remember, but Boondocks talked about that. Like, what if the top high school athletes went to actual HBCUs and generated all that wealth, and then that money that schools generate is put back into the student population that will become pharmacists, doctors. So that was actually a Boondocks episode, man.
Yes, sir. And guess what? I told y'all better go protect Deion Sanders.
Yeah, he had Jackson State, right?
His cachet, and I'm pretty sure the NCAA is going to make sure that the season is full. Coming up in 8 months, he can pull people. He can pull black recruits away.
Oh, absolutely. He got the number 1 recruiting class this year, man. Over all the other coaches, man.
And he has a reality show where he's spotlighting talent.
And his son is a player. His son is one of his athletes. Yeah,
I believe he's going to go to Jackson State or some other HBCU. So black folk, I told y'all better go protect that man because Nick Saban and them, they're pissed off.
They
don't want this keeps happening in 3 years. They're going to be the NCAA going to be trying to look for violations on that man, and all these other coaches that are going to be losing these top recruits. They're going to go up to NCAA and try to be like, "Yo, how the hell are you allowing this?"
Well, it's always been that way. It's just that what's happening is that we're doing a reverse, but without force. So it's like, back with the Negro leagues and things like that. So now it's kind of like it's an open society. And now you're starting to have black coaches because, again, black people love symbolic and images. So Deion Sanders being prime time, they can relate to that like, oh, he's a superstar. So
and he's giving back.
Yeah, they'll send their sons to go play for Deion. Then next thing you know, you'll have someone like Emmitt Smith or somebody He'll be one to go to like Norfolk State, and soon
I could see Marvin Lewis going to college.
Yeah, you'll see some of the black coaches that keep getting passed over in the NFL, or they'll start going to these HBCUs. Next thing you know, the whole HBCU will be coached by former NFL players and coaches that are all black, and
then you end up fucking around in 10 years, one of them in one of them big bowl games.
Oh, they'll win.
You can't ignore them because guess what? Y'all's anti-racist will come right out like, why y'all not putting them in the Fiesta Bowl?
Oh, they will take over. Like if it really was what it is, like as far as the potential for like all the top athletes being mostly black, especially in basketball, like the biggest racial gap is in basketball. Football, it's a big gap, but there's some white guys that can compete because quarterback and offensive lineman, linebacker. But basketball is that sport that blacks like just excel at, and that you really don't have that many white boys in there. All the white boys in the NBA now, 90% I think they're from Europe now.
Yeah, they want the Europe players.
Yeah,
so the Europe players, that's great. But what's end up going to happen too, and I hope they don't go down this road, the HBCUs might get in their feelings and start trying to go for those Euro players.
Well, they are. I've been hearing that a lot of those HBCUs is not what we think it is. Like,
they're opening to white people.
Yeah, it's a lot of white people going to HBCUs because they're cheaper. There's a lot of Latinos. So it's all that's the thing about America, bro. Like that's what it's always a catch-22 when it comes to the race thing. So something on the surface can look one way, but then when you start like peeling back the layers, like, well, okay, hold on. They got more Hispanics at Howard than ever in history, or they got more whites, or they're pushing the gay agenda harder at the HBCU than they are anywhere else in America. It'll always be something like that going on. It's unfortunate to say it, but it's just that's maybe I'm just being a Black American and studying the history. I just have a hard time trusting anything that is promoted by the mainstream because I always know there's always a ulterior motive with them.
Correct.
So they use just like with Tuskegee, right? So the Tuskegee thing, we're doing this program, so we're gonna put the blacks in line first to inoculate them against this or that. No, you ended up giving them syphilis. So it's like, to me, that's an analogy for what they might be doing at the HBCUs. On a social engineering level, they might actually use those colleges to, send all these immigrants that they're bringing in over the next 20 years. It's just, they're always up to something, man.
Yes, sir. All right, so we continue, and then I'll finish this, and then we're going to get up out of here. So lowest Black male unemployment in history, documented. Even CNN had to report it, and they didn't want to report that. But y'all's Obama had the worst. And that was in his second term, not the first term. So he had a chance to change it, but he didn't want to do that because he was emboldened to the women. But okay, criminal justice reform, another hot button topic. They want to knock the First Step Act. Okay, the First Step Act, 90% of the recipients were Black, including Alice Johnson, who was at the RNC. So it was working, and he was even talking about doing the Second Step Act, which was going to address them reacclimating into society with work and the community. But we wanted to knock it because why? Kim Kardashian was the head of it. Which at that point, I think you guys shouldn't care. Now, if you want to say she should have more Black inclusion, you could have that discussion, but respect the effort that was put forth. And also on that, Black folks, I hope you understand that within Biden's first 100 days, that First Step Act is going to be ceased. So all you Negroes that thought you were going to get out by the springtime, because Biden's going to tell you he needs to make sure that it's inclusive all the way around, because those numbers were disproportionately on the side of Black people. And he can't have that because he's still emboldened to the prison industrial complex. And those private prisons are pissed off because they haven't been full in years because of Trump's initiatives, and they have to get it full.
Shit's about to get ugly, man. It's unfortunate, bro, but that's one of the reasons why I stopped really, uploading and things anymore, because I became very disenchanted after seeing all the things that you have on your, I've talked about numerous times with a lot of brothers in this space, and it's like, even with all that talk that we were doing, it didn't have much impact on that blind Pavlovian dog, loyalty.
Yeah, It's the women. That's the problem.
Oh,
The men are we're doing too much things for the women, and that's where the problem is. We're trying to make sure that we keep them happy. No, a happy man means a happy house, means a happy wife, happy children. You've got to think about your happiness first on yourself. And how is it that we can't do that, but you can watch chicks on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok say, sis, take care of your own? How do they get that pass and we don't?
Well, that's what's been happening. That's what you've seen is divergence between black men and black women politically, economically, culturally, socially, and that gap is just going to explode. And I guess what I'm saying is that just so much stuff that you're talking about in terms of like, that history part, I just think that stuff is gone down a memory hole, man. Like, because again, when you ask, why don't we have more Black Wall Streets? It's because black people don't want Black Wall Streets. They want to be a part of the Madison Avenue crowd. They want to be a part of the Rodeo crowd. You know what I'm saying? Like they want to be a part of Fashion Week.
But you know what's funny about that too? But as us as black folks love them 70s movies, don't we?
We love a lot of that stuff because
and where were they going? They weren't going to no white clubs. They were going to their own clubs.
They was going to the Chitlin circuit, man. BB King and all of that kind of James Brown. You know what I'm saying? They was happy to do that because again, they still were pretty limited back then. Because even when you look at some of the documentaries from those days, there was a lot of stuff where those musicians weren't able to do what they call crossing over in the industry.
Right.
And they had like white boys and white women that would take the songs of black people and they would sell the blacks' music, which was owned by whites and Jews. They would take the creative power of those blacks, put white faces on it, and all the money. So it was a black talent, white faces, but it was all going to white people's pocket.
Shout out to Pat Boone.
Yeah, Pat Boone and all of that shit. So, that's just what it is, bro. And I think that we just reached this point now in 2021, not knowing what the actual economy, we don't have a clue on a street level what the economy looks like right now. We don't have a clue. We don't know how many businesses are going to be closed for good, never to open.
Well, I can tell you up here in New York, a lot of these restaurants and a lot of these small businesses aren't coming back. They're not.
Yeah, same out here. They said at least a third of the businesses out here are not coming. So we already know a third, but I'm saying that's just an estimate. Maybe it ends up being half. And remember, small businesses employ like 80% of workers. Small businesses.
Yep. I told people that in that room too. I was like, y'all are sitting there y'all advocating to destroy small businesses, and that's where most of the economy comes from. Not everyone can get to Target.
They love the government,
and
man.
Especially the old folks on those fixed incomes. They shop in their neighborhoods.
Oh man, yeah. The fixed income,
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about it though, bro, is like you talk to these people, they have such dependence on the government, and then you say to them like, "Don't you understand? The government created slavery. The government created Jim Crow. Without the interference of the government, there would have never been slavery. Without the interference of government, there couldn't have been Jim Crow. The only way Jim Crow could exist is at the legal level. That's why you have Plessy versus Ferguson that created Jim Crow in the South, because the Supreme Court said this is a legal system. But if it doesn't get the stamp of approval from Congress and the Supreme Court, then it's not going to have power. So these people are just giving more and more power to the same federal government that has had no problem taking away all of your rights and limiting your growth as a citizen. And you're going to say, well, we're going to trust them now because 2021. If that's the case for most blacks, I just don't think that they even care about freedom. They don't even care about competing because they
think they're free now. That's the problem. And they don't realize they're still in chains.
Free to be broke. Free to be broke. Because again, as a minority population that is now second to Latinos with numbers, but again, we're in third place, tied for third place economically. So the Asians are number one. And then the Latinos have the biggest political bloc now of the minority groups. Blacks are on par with Latinos at the end of, remember, we're still going by data from 2010. Because the new census got put on hold for like the next 6 months because of COVID. So what if we find out that the number now is way bigger than it was in 2010? So you and I understand this, and a lot of brothers in this space do, but unfortunately, It ain't no hope for most of them because they just don't care, bro. Like they don't care.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say after I finish this. And
well, you got it, bro. I'm gonna get off and I'm gonna listen to you.
all right, cool. Yeah, I'm just gonna finish this up because.
All right, bro. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. King Sigma, thank you so much. Okay, so again, military vets got more money, which black veterans who are big homeless class sorely needed that. So that was going to go towards mental health facilities, making sure that they were getting their meds, and a lot of vets, they were for that. One thing they never showed on the news: he saved many black kids from being trafficked. It was a big operation down in Georgia. Saved about, I think, 50 kids all together. A lot of black kids could have ended up being somebody's slave in Europe. But y'all want to worry about kids in cages, which Obama started. He helped begin a blueprint for black people to get reparations and capital injections over a decade using a framework from a rapper and businessman and two prominent black minds, which we just talked about, the Platinum Plan. $500 billion. Got Juneteenth on the books. Mental health money, extra mental health money, other initiatives that you clamored for. $50 billion a year, I understand it's not enough to make up for slavery, but it was a start. You had that man by the balls. And his team assigned black people, black men, black conservatives to hammer that agenda out. We could have had that on the House floor in 2022 and the Senate. And we could have seen, if we got it out early enough, who were for it and who were against it. And if they were against it, you could go put your people in there to take their seats to make sure it gets passed and enforced. But again, I always say this: we do not think ahead enough. He inspired a voting bloc largely ignored in the community, the young black conservatives. Call Candace Owens a coon all you want. The fact that she had hundreds of black kids and young black professionals and their parents at the White House given a voice should have said a lot on optics, but we listened to our media call all those kids and their parents and these young black professionals buck dancers. Yet if we did this during Obama, it would be championed. This is a big one here. Got black people to participate in the stock market, Forex, real estate, etc. at higher levels. Nobody was talking about this stuff when Obama was sitting. Nobody was talking about it when Bush was sitting. Unless you had a corporate job, you didn't get access to this stuff. Or you had some money and you had your own private stock market accounts. We weren't doing this. Excuse me. Now you can go on Instagram. I follow people that do Forex. I follow people that do stocks. Go on Clubhouse. There's, for every 10 rooms that are in there, 5 of them are about real estate. Brother Ben X, Nation of Islam, he's in there talking about real estate. Rose Gold, she's down in Baltimore. She's talking about starting a real estate company. We weren't talking about this. That man inspired that because I don't know what it was about him, but maybe you saw his blueprint where he came from. Even though he got his money from his daddy, he built something. It wasn't a coincidence that 150 times his name was mentioned in rap songs. So he obviously inspired something. 2019, Black wealth was at its peak. You can go look up that data. It's there. Got millions of black people into the middle class. My family was one of them. We were humming from 2018 till the pandemic hit. We were almost about to touch $80,000 collectively, which is not a lot in terms of being in New York, but if we were down in Atlanta, we'd probably have a house by now. I taxed I taxed this government and got myself out of credit card debt with the extra $600 they gave, so I could set myself up for later. How many black people did that? How many of y'all were willing to sacrifice a couple dollars out of that so when you get your tax bill this year, you don't get hit in the head? But that's what King Sigma and I and Rose and all these other people were telling you. Do your research. Use what these other groups are using to your advantage to overtake the system. But we didn't want to do that. We expected the system to give us what we want. You got to remember, this is the government. They don't have to do anything for us, and we still pay their taxes. We still pay their salaries. Black businesses boom thanks to opportunity zones. You can go look at the data on that. He exposed Congress for being shiftless, both sides. Wanted to give out $2,000 per American as long as the pork is gone, and got bipartisan support, including the full AOC. AOC was for $2,000. Bernie was for $2,000. All Trump wanted to do was get all the foreign stuff out of there right now because we have people hurting here now. There's no reason why in that bill, $1 billion should go to the Smithsonian when it's not open. $1 billion can cure a lot of problems in this country, especially in the black community. But we didn't call that out, which is why I said at the end, but it's F Trump because of BLM, ignorance via not researching, and cops killing black folks. They preyed on your emotion. And my last 2 points. I said this in the room and I didn't get to talk about it, and I'm sure you guys have heard me say this before, but there's going to be a draft. Probably this summer, latest the fall. The way China's moving on Taiwan, black folks need to pay attention to that. The way North Korea is moving with those new submarine launching ballistic missiles, and the way Biden was talking in that last debate calling North Korea a bunch of thugs, you need to watch that. And what they're going to do is bring you up, call for this draft, and probably going to have to do a sweetheart deal by giving you money or paying something off just to get black folks to sign up, because the first people they're going to look at are you, because us, we're going to be the most vocal. We're going to say we're not fighting this white man's war. Not happening. And they're going to force you to go. So I need black folks to really start watching and using DuckDuckGo, using Tor, using all these other search engines besides Google and Yahoo and Bing that suppress information, and really start looking into things. Start asking questions. I'm not saying you guys shouldn't have voted for Biden, but you guys should have did your research on that man. You should have did your research on Kamala. She's about to get inaugurated in 3 days. She still hasn't come up with an agenda for black women. But she's worried about East Indians. Biden's worried about East Indians. He's worried about taking care of the Hispanics. But you guys sold your vote to that man, and you're getting nothing except some faces in his cabinet. That doesn't make sense. That's why we always advocate you got to start at the local level. You got to go to your PTAs, because the Democrats are emboldened to these teacher unions. They love voting Democrat. If you're not taking care of the education at home and in your neighborhoods, why are they going to invest in your neighborhood? When you go to other non-black areas or mixed areas, you see parents at these PTAs. I went to a black school. My parents went to the PTA. Now, granted, it was run by a Jamaican woman, but they were there. They were asking the questions. It seems like we only do that when we invest money into it. And that mindset has to change. If you can't do it for free, you can't than have all this animus. I'm sorry. If you're paying for it and have the animus, you can't come back free with the same. You have to come free with the same animus or more. But the last thing is, and I've advocated this also, and then I'm going to get out of here. For us to build a Black Wall Street, Black people are seriously going to have to consider taking the Black people that are willing to build and willing to put in that work and understanding that the reward is going to take a little while to get there, but they're for the mission. We're going to have to really consider taking those folks and restarting the Black race and leaving the baggage behind. Because we can't bring everybody on this. The FBAs, I told you on when I did my Wake Up Black America show, the FBAs and the ADOS are tight right now. King Sigma, I believe, is FBA. He can correct me in the comments section. He's you heard him talk about how him and the other brothers have talked like this. Taisha Essex, she's FBA. She's pro-Black. She's tired. She has her son to worry about who's going to become a Black man, a Black adult male in this country. I have a daughter. I have to worry about in 18 years. She's going to be an adult. What are we going to leave our kids? We're sitting here worrying about the busset challenge and all this other dumb shit. I'm not saying you can't have fun, but this is not the time for fun. We got to start making sure that we're setting ourselves up for the future. Every other race is killing us right now. And the biggest prize, the biggest asset we had, we basically just threw it away for identity politics. The Hispanics said no communism, and we're flowing down here. And it was because of this man, and Biden's going to mess it up. We're going to have to make sure we vote and make sure Donald Trump gets back in. That's why he has a large Hispanic power base, even though he said what he said about Mexicans. That should tell you something, Black folks, because I've heard Black folks bring that up to me, what he said about Mexicans. That has nothing to do with Cubans. That has nothing to do with Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Guatemalans, El Salvadorians, Ecuadorians, all of them. They don't care. If he didn't say it about them, they don't care. What are you doing for my pockets? What are you doing for my family? What are you doing to make sure that we can protect ourselves? And he said the right words, and they said, cool, we're riding with you. I was at the Capitol. You would be shocked to see how many Asian people were out there for Trump. Now, granted, they were going for China's neck, but they were out there in their Trump gear. White people, say no more. You know how that is. You can take it or leave it with that man. But of course, when it comes to us Black folks, you have a differing opinion that's not democratic or liberal. You're a coon. And we destroyed the Black conservatives. They're not even going to talk for us anymore. And the bigger slap in the face, what y'all did with the Black conservatives, you voted for a Black pastor in Ralph Warnock, who's never done any type of legislation, but you voted him in because he wanted to run. And then ran on a premise that he didn't even tell you what he's going to do for you. But that's all I got to say. Thank you for listening. This is not going to go up on the audio. I'm going to leave this up here because I don't want to spend my day tomorrow trying to edit it and this, that, and the third. But please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you again to Rose for coming through for the little time she has. She still has employment, so, she has to constantly work on that. And thanks to King Sigma. He does great work, so check out his channel. And you know how I give it up. Instagram is at the bottom of the screen. I'm no longer on Twitter, and I got rid of my Facebook, so Instagram is the main way to contact me. So take care, stay safe, wear your mask to get your supplies, and just remember, it's always going to get worse before it gets better, but also understand that we are in a state of emergency, and we need to really start being more strategic with our moves because we're way too militant and we're basically an army with no strategy. And the easiest way to destroy an army with no strategy is to infiltrate and divide the ideology. And that's what's been done to the Black community. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Peace.